are like, well, I don't know how to make texture. How do I do that? This is basically a box of collected items. I don't even know where this hippo came from. I got a little toy tank in here. But anything that has kind of like a rough edge will work. So we're gonna try this out here in just a second. I've got rope, that works really well. This was just like extra tin from some project. I have no idea why I have that. Here's just some pieces of metal that I found. Rocks work really well, especially if they have some kind of texture like this. This actually looks like a piece of coral. You can use shells. A lot of people have shells laying around. There's all kinds of stuff in here. Here's a Crayola glue stick that makes a really good texture, especially because of this edge right here. Here's an SOS pad. We've got a little paper clip container. Here's a frame. It's kind of cool. We got the mystery machine. That's kind of fun. Maybe I'll use that. And then, of course, you can make stamps out of bisque, too. So if you have the opportunity to do that, you could do that as well. So here is a stamp that's been made. Here's another one. I don't know if you can see that really that well. There we go. Here's one. So those are made from bisque, and then you would fire them, and then they go, you can stamp them into the clay, and it works really, really well. And oftentimes I'll have students make those. This is kind of fun. Somebody just rolled up some rubber band, and I bet that makes kind of a cool texture. Here's a button. Here's a pin, a little flower. Here's a Lego. So you get the idea. Pretty much anything will work. I think I even have a piece of wallpaper in here. Oh, somebody left a bracelet. Look at that. There's all kinds of stuff that you can definitely use. The chain. It's a bracelet. This is a deodorant lid, another stamp. So you get the idea. So just do a little search around your house and find some items that you think would make some really great texture. And then you're gonna wanna cut and roll out a piece of slab, like the one I have right here, so you can practice it, because you don't wanna put it right onto your final piece without some kind of plan of action. So that's what we're gonna do next. All right, so I have my two pieces, my front and my back here, and I'm going to go ahead and just smooth this out just a little bit more because it's kind of got messed with whenever I had the saran wrap and just kind of moving it around and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a smooth here with my rib tool. If you're at home, any kind of straight edge will work. You can use a ruler, credit card, popsicle stick, anything. Anything that'll give you a nice straight edge. Just going to compare these and make sure they're still about the same size. So they do shrink a little bit as they dry, so I've got one that's a little bit larger than the other. You see that? So I'm going to go ahead and trim that now before I put my texture on. So it wasn't too terrible. I mean, that was the width that it was. That still would have went together, so it's not that big of a deal. But since I have the option here with my X-Acto knife, I'm going to go ahead and do it. I also wanted to point out that you can use roller stamps as well. These are by Amco, so if you are just kind of like getting into ceramics or you're just taking a class online, you might not have access to these. You can purchase them. I think they're a little bit expensive for what they are, and they become pretty mundane looking, and you see these patterns all over the place just because they're accessible to individuals. So, but it is a really easy way to make texture in your clay. So I do have them in the studio for students to use. But I particularly like to use found objects, or I like to make my own stamps just because I think they have a little bit more originality to them. So, but this is an option if you are interested in that. That is a good route to go for beginners. So this is going to be my test piece of clay. I don't need it to be round or anything because I'm just trying out some stamps. And I actually would prefer for this slab to be a little bit more dry. It's pretty moist, but it will work for what we're trying to see and accomplish. So I picked out some objects that I'm going to try. So I'm going to try this deodorant lid, and if any of your pieces stick, you can use cornstarch, you can use dust from your clay. I don't actually have any. I have some at my home studio, but I don't think I have any here. But if your clay sticks, you can also, or if your pieces stick to the clay, you can also put a piece of saran wrap over the clay and you can press into it as well. So I'll show you that since I don't have any cornstarch. But I'll show you both ways, like pushing into the clay as well directly. It's just that sometimes these pieces, the plastic gets stuck. So here, let's just try it. See how it's getting stuck in there? And it's because the clay has a lot of moisture in it. So what you can do is you can either let this sample piece dry, which is going to be your best route. Not dry, but maybe give it like 10-15 minutes. Or you can put a piece of saran wrap over it and you can see also what it looks like. So whenever you're stamping something into your clay, once you find like something that you think you like, then it's a good idea to kind of see what it looks like if it's in repetition. And that's pretty cool. Kind of like that. So who would have thought you would have got that design from a deodorant lid? I believe this is Old Spice. It's from my husband. So that's pretty neat. So let's go keep going and see what we get. I'm going to keep this on here since my clay is does have a lot of moisture in it. Let's see what the mystery machine would do. Definitely make us a little road. That could be kind of cool. And then you could add stuff around the side of it. Let's see what this does. Look like little shrubs or something. I don't really like that one though. This would probably work better if it was in the clay. Yeah. Okay. Let's see what this one does. Ooh, that's nice. You can't really see it probably in the clay, but it's like this snake skin effect. And I made this by using, you know those mesh bags that are around your fruit, like oranges or apples? That's what that was made from. I wanted to try the hippo feet. Let's see what we get. That's pretty funny. So you could have them walking across your piece. That's kind of funny. Pretty hilarious. So you get the idea. So you're just taking any kind of found object and you're pressing it into the clay to see what texture you can get. This would be really cool. I'm digging this. Especially if my clay was a little bit more dry. That's awesome. I'm liking that one. And if I remember correctly, this stamp was made from like Mardi Gras beads. See if that's over. And I just wrapped it around this piece of clay and then pressed it in there. But you get a really cool effect when you roll it. I'm digging it. Let's try this. So this is a bracelet. That's cool. So you can get a little bit sharper edge if you do it right into the clay, it looks like. I think that would happen even if the clay was a little bit more dry. So I like it with this softer edge with the saran wrap over it. So that actually brings me to a good point. You know, you're going to have different effects if your saran wrap is over it or if it's not. So you might want to try it both ways to kind of see what happens. Cool. And then, you know, there is the regular old pencil that you could use, which you can get some pretty cool effects with by just kind of pressing into the clay. Especially if you start to kind of overlap these. Don't do it too much or you'll lose it. And then switching and doing some smaller kind of dots. And you can really stack these on top of each other and they get a cool texture. Almost like a lavish kind of feel to it. I know when sometimes I'll make these little houses and I'll use this technique and it looks like little moss, a little bit of moss from a garden. So that's fun. So the idea is that you go around your house and you find different items and you give it a try in a spare piece of clay that you're not going to use. But you definitely want to prep for your texture. You're not going to want to go straight to your pieces because I think you'll be pretty disappointed and you won't have a plan of action. So once I decide which texture I'm going to use, then I'm going to do one more little test plate and I'm going to figure out, okay, how do I want this to look on my round slab? So that will be the next step. This piece of wallpaper, and there was underglaze on that paper because I printed with it, so it's not a huge deal because it was just a test piece anyway. But so I know that I'm going to use this on part of my circle, and I think I'm going to use it on the bottom half. And now I need to figure out what I'm going to do for the top half, if I'm going to add anything at all. And I really kind of liked how this looked when I did my test piece a minute ago, so I'm going to try this again, but this time I'm going to do it in kind of a cohesive repeating pattern so I can get an idea of what it would look like in conjunction with this texture over here. So again, if my clay was a little bit more dry, I would just do it right on the clay, but this clay has so much moisture in it that it is going to cause this to stick. So I'm going to put these right next to each other as close as I can get it, and kind of messing with the pressure to see how much pressure I'm going to need when I put this on my other slabs. And I'm going to go right in between these. See what that looks like. I like that a lot, and I think the roundness of this shape plus it's got kind of a geometric design on the inside. It's going to pair well with this because we have an organic shape in the middle, and then this is pretty geometric. So between the two, when I combine them, I can get something that seems pretty cohesive. And the last thing I wanted to try was this little bracelet guy. I was thinking maybe I could use it as a border, but I'm not really liking that, so instead, you know, if you mess up and you don't want to make another piece, you can just use a flat, like your popsicle stick if that's what you have, an old credit card, debit card, or if you have a rib is going to be your ticket. And don't worry about that because maybe I could use the good old mystery machine for my border if I wanted one. Maybe. I think that would work better with a little bit drier clay. I do like the effect that it gives, but I don't think it goes with the two pieces that I really like. So now that I know that these are going to be my texture, I'm ready to go ahead and apply it to my official slabs that will become the building focal point of my form. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press my texture into my two pieces, and I'm going to have one going just horizontal, and then I think on the back side I'm going to have it at a diagonal. So I'm going to move one out of the way so it doesn't get any print on it. And then the next option is, you know, you got to figure out where you, because I don't want this straight edge where this design has been cut off. So I think I'm going to bend this back a little bit, and I'm going to roll right here. So try to keep that bent. So I'm going to press this into the clay. And this clay is going to be a little bit harder than the clay that we use for our test because this is the one that's been sitting. So you might have to press a little bit harder than you did on your, if you just did your test pieces on that really wet clay. And you probably, I don't know if you'll have anything that you can roll like this. Maybe you will. But if not, and you're just stamping it in, then that's okay too. If you're going to do anything like this, though, and you're going to roll it, don't pick it all the way up. Make sure that it actually went in there. So just pick up maybe the side edge. Oops. That way you can see if your design got impressed into that clay. Because if not, it kind of defeats the purpose, right? Cool. So while I have this out, I really should have cleaned this piece of wallpaper off, but that's all right. Just a little sponge would have cleaned it up. So then on this one, I'm going to go at a diagonal, and I'm going to cover quite a bit of it. And rolling this is probably going to alter the shape of my circles a little bit, but it'll be fine. They'll still go together. It's not going to move it that much. So that looks really nice. Kind of like the underglaze that's happening on there actually. So these are going to be my two pieces that I'm going to use. I'm going to add just a little bit more texture right here on this edge just to soften it up. And I'm going to use that deodorant lid that I thought looked nice. And again, because this clay is more dry, I don't need to put that saran wrap on top of this clay. Okay, so now that I have my stamps done and my texture on my two slabs, I'm ready to actually construct my slab form. So you could put texture on the side pieces if you want to. I'm not going to, I'm just going to leave that plain. I'm happy with this design, so I want to just kind of make the focal point the front and the back of the form.